All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. Well, we've got one full month officially in the books for this college football season. I know that some teams got the party started in August, but nonetheless, September is now in the books. And of course, we're starting to feel out who the contenders are and will be for this playoff race. Clearly, we still got the month of October here, as well as the month of December. And of course, October 12th. Okay, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday is going to go a very long way in determining who gets to that college football playoff. So, as of right now, the way that I have things ranked for the 12 team playoff, and of course, you got to factor in that the conference champions, the highest ranked conference champions, get the first four buys. And then it's everybody else seeds 5 through 12 as far as the at large bids, as far as, the first round of the playoff, which will be on campus. But for right now, number one, I'm going to go Alabama. Of course, their big win over Georgia this past Saturday night, really helps to strengthen their case. Also, they went on the road and dominated Wisconsin. I know that Wisconsin is not ranked. I know that Wisconsin is not a quote unquote power this year, but still going to Camp Randall and winning in the fashion that they did in Big Ten country definitely should account for something. Number two, I'm going to go with Ohio State. Right now, I feel like they are the best team in the Big Ten. And the scary thing for the Buckeyes, I don't think they've peaked yet. Okay. You look at Miami, I'm going to go with them. Number three, clearly right now, the top team out of the ACC. Miami survived a big time scare this past Friday night against Virginia Tech. A lot of controversy behind how that game ended, but nonetheless, the Canes so far are the best team in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And then number four, I'm going to go BYU. BYU is looking good so far. I know that they survived the scare on the road this past Saturday at Baylor, but we saw BYU go on the road, host K State a couple of weeks ago and get a big time win. And right now the Cougars are just simply looking good. Number five for me, I'm gonna go Texas, and Texas is right there in that mix to be one of the top teams, if not win the SEC. Of course, we saw the Longhorns go to Ann Arbor and dominate Michigan a couple of weeks ago, and no Quinn Ewers right now as it's Arch Manning show, but the Longhorns are still very dangerous. Tennessee, Josh Heupel has himself a very good squad. In Knoxville, we saw them go on the road and have their way with a solid Oklahoma team, and I think that's going to be telling for the Volunteers now as they get into the heart of the SEC schedule. Number seven, I'm going to go with Penn State. James Franklin, once again, has a solid team on both sides of the football, especially with that Nittany Lions defense. Number eight, I'm going to go Georgia. Georgia was clearly ranked higher. They dropped down after that loss, and I want to see how the Bulldogs are going to be able to respond. Number eight, I'm going to go Oregon. Oregon, they're undefeated. Close win to begin the year with Idaho. Very close win with Boise, a very good Boise team. Okay. And then in recent weeks, we've seen the Ducks blow out Oregon State and have their way with an overmatched UCLA team. Number 10, I'm going to go with Missouri as of right now. Number 11, I'm going to go with Michigan. I know that Michigan had the big time loss to Texas. They've looked like a better team since Sharon Moore has gone with Alex Orji at quarterback as Michigan has just gotten back to doing what they do, which is run the football. And then, of course, we saw what their defense and their run game did as they beat USC a couple of weeks ago at home. And then finally, number 12, I'm going to go with UNLV. If you've had the opportunity, or if you haven't had the opportunity to see UNLV in action so far this season, Barry Odom has himself a darn good team. I said it coming into this year, UNLV was going to be in the mix to win the Mountain West, and I am definitely going to stick by that statement. Some other teams to keep your eyes on. I'm looking at USC. I want to see how they rebound after that loss to Michigan. Of course, they were down early and at the half at home against Wisconsin before they turned it on in the second half this past Saturday. Iowa State, they're undefeated out of the Big 12 conference. Matt Campbell always has a tough team. LSU, after losing their season opener to USC out in Las Vegas, the Bayou Bengals are starting to get it together under head coach Les Miles. Of course, they also survived that scare in Columbia against South Carolina. Number 16, right there in that mix, I'm going to go with Clemson. You look at the Tigers, we saw them get destroyed by Georgia, a very good Georgia team in Atlanta to begin this season. But Cade Klubnik and company are getting it together on offense. And I think as the weeks progress, the Tigers will continue to get better in the ACC. I'm also going to put K State as a team to watch on this list. We saw K State go to Provo and get dominated by a good BYU team. We just saw the Wildcats, have their way with Oklahoma State. And you know what? With their running game with their defense, you can never count out the Wildcats. I also want to keep an eye out for Notre Dame. I know they had the shocking loss to Northern Illinois, but like since then, the Irish have looked like a different team. Of course, not having a conference championship game and not being undefeated will hurt Notre Dame's chances. They still want to try to be in that mix. That USC game towards the end of the season is looming big now. Coming into the season, it looked like they were going to have the benefit of the doubt of, possibly facing a ranked Florida State team. Of course, clearly that is no longer the case. So let's see how Notre Dame plays into things. Boise State. I know that Boise has the 3-point loss on their resume to Oregon. They lost by 3 in Eugene. And of course, Boise is looking very good. We just saw them beat a very good Washington State team this past weekend. And I think Boise and UNLV are on a track to clash for that Mountain West championship. And also, you look at the Indiana Hoosiers. So far, they're undefeated. They're representing the Big Ten. Will they be able to stay in the mix and make some noise for the race for the college football playoff? We've got to wait and see. Also, some other questions that have to be answered. How will Georgia, Utah, and Ole Miss bounce back from their losses this past Saturday? Well, out of all three of those teams, clearly, if you had to pick one that was most likely to lose, it would have been Georgia. You're talking about going on the road in a hostile environment, playing a top 5 team, a team that is expected to contend for the national championship in Alabama. We saw Georgia get down early. We saw them come back, but then we saw Alabama turn it up at the end to win. You look at Georgia, and of course, it's not as easy a path to the playoff as it has been in recent years for Kirby Smart's Bulldogs. But you look at it, if they're able to survive, they're going to be in that mix. I'm looking at that game on November 19th with Texas. That will be very telling, as will their trip to Oxford to take on Ole Miss on the 9th of November. For Utah, shocking loss to Arizona. Want to see how the Utes bounce back. And, Utah's still going to be in that mix to win the Big 12 conference. Arizona has a solid team as well. So I think Utah has some good chances to be right back in this mix to make the postseason. Ole Miss, tough loss to Kentucky. I know that Kentucky was not ranked, but we saw the Wildcats really push Georgia a couple of weeks ago, and they really could have won that game. Okay. And it's one of those where, with Mark Stoops, if you're going to beat his team, you're going to have to pack a lunch. But for the Ole Miss Rebels, they're going to have their opportunities, but they got to try to go out there and seize the moment when they play the likes of Texas and Georgia. So I'm looking at it like this. You got some other teams that are still undefeated around college football. How about the service academies that are representing the American Athletic Conference? And I'm talking about Army and Navy. Both of them are undefeated as of right now. Let's see if they can keep that momentum going. You got Duke and Pitt out of the ACC. Each one of them is undefeated. Rutgers, another Big Ten school. They're undefeated. And then you have Liberty and James Madison. And of course, we saw Liberty get the group of five bid to the New Year's Six last year. James Madison was not eligible, and James Madison has picked up right where they left off from. Remember, we saw James Madison a couple of weeks ago go to Chapel Hill and hang 70 on North Carolina. So, like I said, these are the early stages of this race for the college football playoff. And of course, this month of October, is going to be very telling because we have some very big games on the docket. And like I said, that weekend of October 12th, you just look at that Saturday. Ohio State at Oregon, Penn State at USC. Okay, Alabama hosts South Carolina. You've got Texas and Oklahoma in Dallas. You've got um, Tennessee clashing with Florida. I know that Florida is not a championship contender right now, but nonetheless, it still is a rivalry game. And then you've also got Ole Miss traveling to Tiger Stadium to take on LSU, as well as K-State and Colorado. Colorado's 2-0 so far in the Big 12 conference. Will they be able to make some noise? We got to wait and see. So, like I said, we're starting to get into the meat and potatoes of things. And at the end of the day, you're going to have some of these teams bumping each other off, especially in the SEC, especially in the Big Ten, and especially in the Big 12, because I just think they're just going to beat up on each other so much. As of right now, today, I've got five teams getting in from the SEC, four from the Big Ten, one from the Big 12, one from the ACC, and one from the Group of Five. It's one of those scenarios, though. Clearly, like I said, these teams are going to bump each other off. That's going to change. I mean, coming into things when the season began, I said both the Big Ten and SEC will get at least three. So that's at least six bids right there between those two superpowers, if you will. You look at it right now, the ACC for me, I still think it's wide open. I know you got some undefeated teams within the conference. Of course, Miami is undefeated overall, as is Duke. But at the end of the day, I think these teams are going to start bumping each other off as well. You look at the Big 12, BYU is legit. Talked about Iowa State. Who's going to get that automatic bid and how many other teams are going to get in? We got to wait and see. But again, like I said before, these teams are going to start bumping each other off. And then you've got the group of five. Like I talked about it, you got Army and Navy who are undefeated overall out of the American Conference. Then you look at Conference USA, you got Liberty, who's undefeated once again. Um, then you look at the Mountain West with both UNLV and Boise State. So all of these teams, I think, can go out there and make runs to get in this tournament. And then for Notre Dame, like I said, that Northern Illinois loss, especially since the Huskies have lost since then, that is really going to put the Fighting Irish behind the eight ball. But like I said, when it's all said and done, we're going to get at least six bids combined from both the Big Ten and SEC. And remember, I'm focusing on at least. All right. You look at the way that these teams are ranked right now. I mean, you look at the SEC alone. You've got Texas A&M, Texas, Alabama, Missouri, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma, and Georgia, all ranked in the AP Top 25. That's eight schools right there. And then you look at the Big Ten right now. You've got Indiana, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Illinois, and USC, all ranked in the top 25 as well. So that's seven bids or seven teams ranked right now from the Big Ten, eight from the SEC. That's 15 of the top 25 schools right there. So you do the math right there. But nonetheless, like I said before, we're getting into the meat and potatoes of these things. These teams are going to start bumping each other off. Who's going to survive? Who's going to have that inside track to get to the college football playoff? This month is going to be very telling. The action has been exciting, a lot of impact so far. And let's see what the next month of this college football season has in store. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 pounds of sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.